Hello everyone, I am back and let me update you on what is going on. All right, so what we've been doing is we have been skinning chopped carbon fiber on top of whatever we're doing. And then on some of them and other pieces we have molds. So when we have a mold, we'll use the mold. If we don't, we'll just skin it. So this one has been skinned. I just basically laid out the pieces. It consists of 3 different hoods combined to make this. And so the end result didn't exist, as in no mold existed. So we had no choice but to skin it. And we used the chopped carbon fiber. Now the chopped carbon fiber, when you put it on, ends up with a very rough surface because you just can't get that chopped carbon fiber to lay flat. So what you do is you just go ahead, put it on, put some epoxy, and then what we've been doing is just adding more layers of epoxy as we go on. The specific epoxy can go up to 72 hours without requiring resanding. So rather than wait or sand, we just go ahead and put a couple of layers on to get it built up. Then we have to sand. And usually there are several stages of sanding and fixing and sanding and fixing. So the disadvantage of using this approach is that exactly that. It takes a lot of sanding. Now, when I say a lot, probably the first time we're using 80 grit and hand sanding with a board because we want to knock down the high spots. So the first time takes somewhere between 4 to 6, maybe 8 hours, depending on how smoothly you can get the chopped carbon fiber to lay down. After that, each time it takes successively less and less sanding. So we're down to probably one more layer of epoxy on this one, but you can see like this top area, it's flat, but there's other areas that are rougher. You can see over there, let me go ahead and show you. There we go. Yeah, you can see the ripples right here in the surface. So you can see where we've been sanding, we knocked down the high spots, but we still have some low spots. So it's always an option. Which do you want to do? Do you want to put on another layer of epoxy or do you want to keep on sanding? Personally, I'd rather put on more epoxy. I hate sanding. So that's where we are with this. I've got to do something about these openings where the vents go. I hacked up the original hood that I used underneath here, so this could only go down as far as that did after I hacked it up. What I want to do is I want to make an insert that goes inside of here and then the slats that go in here. And originally these were aluminum, and it was like aluminum sheet metal, probably 1/16 of an inch thick, something like that. It looked too thin. I didn't like the way it looked, so I was going to have some made out of billet. And then it dawned on me that, hey, why do that? Why not make them out of carbon fiber? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make those out of carbon fiber, and then I'm going to make this surround right here so that the whole thing can be made separately and then just slid in here, either up from the bottom or down from the top. I haven't decided which. I'm almost thinking down from the top with a little lip all the way around would be the best option, but I'll figure that out. And then once we do that, then we'll make a mold. All right, haven't figured out how to attach the slats to this perimeter if I do it. The hood that I got, they cut slots in here at an angle, and then they slid the aluminum up from the bottom, and it has a 90-degree turn, and you actually put a bolt in each one. I'm trying to figure out how to not have to do all of that. It's tedious, and cutting those out is obviously tedious as well. All right, the next thing. This is the rear hatch. It is on its final leg. We got it sanded pretty smooth, and then there are some defects in the surface. So what we did is we skim coated some epoxy on here, and we still need to sand it and see where we're at. Okay, the mirror, it's down to, it probably could use one more coat. You can see it's almost smooth, but it's got some areas that could use some flattening. We could sand this down, but these corners are really easy to accidentally sand through. So rather than do that, I think we're just going to put another coat on it. The gas cap is completely done, but we sanded it the very last thing, and it needs clear coat now. And so that's what we're waiting for. The clear coat is in rattle cans, and you basically, it's a two-part 2K clear, and there's the hardener is inside the can. You break a seal and it mixes it, but you have 48 hours to use it. So we don't want to do a can until we're ready to do something more than just the gas filler door. All right, we're working on a lot of things simultaneously. Okay, the next thing is the front fender. Did the fender, and the fender has some voids in it here. If you look, there we go, some pits or voids, whatever you want to call them. I don't think it's fish eyes, but anyway, the way I did this was took the mold, put mold release in it, sprayed it with a 2K paint, but it didn't cover evenly, and I ran out of paint. So yeah, honestly, it would take 2 cans of paint to do that, and I only had 1. So I tried it, went ahead and did it anyway, even though the 2K paint was not a uniform and even surface. And this is what happened. I think that this is the areas that were in between. So what we did was we said, all right, now how do we fix this? Got a lot of suggestions. What we ended up trying for this first try was just putting on another layer of epoxy. Used 2 different approaches here. On this top area, just used a foam brush and brushed it. There are some low spots here. What we figured out is these are just bubbles from the epoxy. We could probably vacuum the epoxy and get it to boil out the bubbles. Haven't bothered with that. Don't have the stuff to do it. But this doesn't look bad, honestly. There are still some void areas. I don't know what that is. Yeah, okay, that's a void area right there. There, you can see there's horrible surface tension issues back here. I just ran the foam brush across it with epoxy, and you can see that it would rather not flow. I need to figure out what's going on. I cleaned it normally. I used Dawn and soap and water, rinsed it, wiped it down with IPA, isopropyl alcohol, and then wiped it down with denatured alcohol. Apparently those 3 combined weren't enough. But then there's other areas where it did just fine. This area right here, I initially put down the epoxy with a foam brush, and then I took a squeegee, a Bondo squeegee, ran it across there. And it looks good enough to me. Again, it has the little air bubbles, the divots from the air bubbles, which I could have fixed by running a heat gun across it, but it was late. I just wanted to see, hey, let's do this before we walk out the door. And so literally it took a couple of minutes to do this. So could have been done better, but again, it really doesn't look bad. You can see I got some runs in it. So we're going to sand this with, I don't know, probably 400 grit and see where we're at. Again, for some reason, there's a huge void right there where the epoxy did not want to stick to the surface. When we left, that was covered. This whole thing was evenly covered. So I've got to figure out what's on the surface here and how to get rid of it. But again, we're just experimenting. Luckily, this area right here at the very front gets cut off. So this is why I experimented with this area. I did sand this whole thing down with sandpaper, and then I used some gold Scotch Brite pads. I got a whole different set of different grits, and gold, according to it, if you look, is the coarsest, so I tried that. So I would have thought that surface would have been just fine. All right, the final thing is, this is the roof target top. It has been through a lot of coats, a lot of sanding. It is almost there. The last thing I did was I sanded it with 1000 grit sandpaper on the DA sander. That is the right side there that has the 1000 grit, and I stopped there. This other side, I went ahead after I did the 1000 grit, and what did I do? I used polishing compound. No, I used rubbing compound first. Then I used polishing compound, and then I used wax. The wax I used is the same wax you use for mold. It does not have silicone in it, so it should not cause surface issues. But at some point, this needs to be clear coated. So I already knew when I was doing this that this would have to be sanded off, scuffed up, because 1000 grit probably is too fine for paint to effectively stick. But I just wanted to see if I could get this to look as nice as epoxy that has not had any surface treatment. When you put the epoxy down on the areas that it lays really well, it's like glass. If you look over here, the places where it went down well, it looks really good. The places where it didn't, obviously it's going to take some sanding. As soon as you sand it, you dull it, and then there's no way to... I wanted to see if I could polish it back to that glass look, and the answer is no. At least not with 1000 grit. It's going to take more than that. So then I wondered, well, then can I polish it up to that? And again, the answer is no. It gets close, but it still could use some more. So the bottom line is that 1000 grit isn't even enough. Have to go much higher than 1000 grit. And because we're going to clear coat it anyway, it was pointless. It was an experiment to see what could we do without going to any extremes or putting any clear on it. And the answer is you can get it to a semi-gloss, but it's not an absolute gloss. I'm walking around to see if there's anything else that I have. Oh, that front area, I hit it with this, it's not a wire brush, but it's similar to a wire brush, and just to rough up the surface. I went into the fender flares and put another layer behind. So again, I skinned it. Trying to be careful because if you look, these things have those, whatever you want to call them, sticking out. And when you get epoxy on them, those are like needles and they hurt like crazy. So I'm trying to turn this over without stabbing myself. I should be wearing gloves. Okay, so this is the external. Again, I skinned that fender right there so that I could get the fender flare to put on the car. And then after I did that, I had a choice. I could either put another layer, external layer on, or I could go inside and put a layer on the inside. I decided for the latter because this way the surface doesn't matter. Not sure that was the best choice, but that's what I did. And I purposely put the epoxy heavy because this is only 2 layers of carbon fiber and it's not really strong at 2 layers. It probably needs 3 layers to be a good standalone thickness, but I already know I'm going to graft it onto this fender, actually the fender we just looked at. And so then something's got to be done where the 2 join, so there'll probably be another layer put on top of this, so there was no point in making this 100% the strength it's supposed to be when I know I'm going to have to add another layer, either on the front or the back. I can do either one because that fender is removable. And then here is the mold that fender was done from. And again, I can't figure out what's going on as far as the surface issues. The next one, I think we've still got to redo the entire back end. It is done in fiberglass, and we decided after I made all of the body panels, I decided I wanted to try it in carbon fiber. Started with the door panels because they seemed like the easiest thing, and that went exceptionally well, although to listen to the internet, I did everything wrong. But it worked great. So then we decided, well, let's try it on the fenders, let's try it on the hood, let's try it on the other things. The bottom line, my conclusion is, hey, if you can do fiberglass, you can do carbon fiber. It is more expensive, but it's really not a whole lot more expensive because you can use much fewer layers of carbon fiber to get the same stiffness as you can, and the weight goes down significantly. That front fender that I did is 2.2 pounds. The back hatch was golly, I can't remember. It was, I think 7.8 pounds or something like that. And then that front hood, original one was a little over 4 pounds, 4.02 pounds to be exact. And then we added an entire layer to strengthen it, and it went up to 7.2, something like that. And then we added yet the clear layers on top, and we are still under 10 pounds. So I'm happy with that. If that was fiberglass, it would be significantly heavier. In fact, at some point I will probably weigh. This is the Grand Sport hood, done in fiberglass. It's not heavy by any means, but it's nowhere near as light as that carbon fiber one. And then there's the slots I was talking about and the drilled holes there. These slots go, let's call it vertically, and then these go horizontally across there. But it's kind of tedious to do that. And I'm trying to minimize the amount of that that's done. The other thing, people are always talking about this core mat or whatever it's called. Here it is here. It was used to strengthen this flat area. Flat areas are really difficult. And this hood isn't light. Now, I don't know if this core mat is contributing to that, but I just never have figured out how in the world it's supposed to lighten things significantly, because it looks to me like it soaks in the resin. So I don't know. I have some. I just haven't used it for that reason. All right, so when I get a chance, I'll weigh this and see what it weighs. But it's not an apples to apples comparison, because it is the full hood and then plus the supporting frame around it, which I do not have on the other hood, because the other hood uses the C6 supporting framework, which is the factory sheet molding compound, which I found is surprisingly heavy. Even though it looks like plastic, compared to carbon fiber, it weighs a lot. Probably even with fiberglass, but compared to carbon fiber, it is heavier. Okay, that's all I've got for now. So go ahead and like, subscribe, hit the alert, hit the thanks if you want to donate, share this thing, and if you don't like what we're doing, you don't know jack. Bye.